Most people think cartoons exist to escape reality. But sometimes, they understand reality better than anything else. Because when you remove politics, remove adult pride, remove complicated language, what's left is something uncomfortable. Truth. And maybe that's why certain cartoons hit harder as adults than they ever did as kids. Because you realize, they weren't entertaining you. They were preparing you. Preparing you for loneliness. For identity. For burnout. For growing up and discovering that life doesn't reward effort as cleanly as you thought. For becoming someone you barely recognize. And the strange part is, they told us everything openly. We just laughed and kept watching. But that's not what those stories were really about. And that's where they quietly change. Because once you become older, the cartoon stops being fiction. And starts feeling like memory. Think about the pattern. A character wants something. Recognition. Love. Adventure. Success. Acceptance. Simple. Almost innocent. And for a while, the world feels understandable. If they work hard, they'll get rewarded. If they stay kind, people will notice. If they become stronger, they'll finally feel enough. That's the promise. That's the setup. But then something shifts. The character reaches the thing. And it doesn't fix them. The hero wins. But still feels empty. The funny character becomes respected. But loses joy. The outsider finally belongs. But realizes they no longer know themselves. And suddenly, the cartoon isn't about achievement anymore. It becomes about identity. About asking, who am I if I finally get everything I wanted, and still feel incomplete? That question appears everywhere. And most people miss it because they're too focused on the plot. There's a moment that exists in hundreds of animated stories. The character pauses. Everything becomes quiet. No music. No jokes. No action. And they stare. At a trophy. At a city. At their reflection. At the people around them. And you can almost feel the realization, this isn't what I thought it would feel like. As kids, we thought that moment meant they needed another adventure. But watch it again. That's not disappointment. That's grief. Grief for the version of themselves they thought would finally become happy. Most people know this feeling. You tell yourself, when I graduate. When I make money. When someone chooses me. When people finally respect me. Then I'll feel complete. Then the moment comes. And somehow, you still wake up feeling like yourself. Still uncertain. Still carrying old fears. That's the hidden thing cartoons kept trying to explain. External change doesn't automatically become internal peace. And that realization hurts. Because it means nobody is coming to complete the story for you. Psychologically, cartoons understand something adults often forget. People don't chase goals. People chase emotions. Success isn't usually about success. It's about wanting to feel worthy. Love isn't always about connection. Sometimes it's wanting proof you're enough. Achievement isn't always ambition. Sometimes it's fear. Fear that if you stop moving, you'll have to meet yourself. That's why so many animated characters never rest. Always another mission. Another challenge. Another dream. Because stopping creates silence. And silence asks dangerous questions. Questions like, do I actually want this? Who would I be without proving myself? What happens if nobody applauds? Cartoons disguise these questions inside colorful worlds because children understand emotions before they understand language. But adults become experts at avoiding them. We call it productivity. Discipline. Being realistic. But sometimes, we're just running. And the painful part is, running works. Until it doesn't. Until one day you finally get the thing. And realize you've been chasing relief, not meaning. There's another scene cartoons repeat. The character changes themselves. Different clothes. Different personality. Different goals. Different version. Trying to become more impressive. More lovable. More acceptable. And for a while, it works. People notice. People approve. But something starts breaking. The character becomes successful, and less alive. Because they're being loved for someone they invented. Maybe you've done this yourself. Different voice around different people. Different personality online. Pretending not to care. Pretending to care too much. Pretending confidence. Pretending you're okay. And eventually, you forget where performance ends. That's why those transformation scenes feel sad. They're not about change. They're about abandonment. The character isn't becoming stronger. They're disappearing. And eventually, the story forces them to choose. Be accepted. Or be real. That choice never stops happening. Not in cartoons. Not in life. This might be why people return to cartoons as adults. Not nostalgia. Recognition. Because cartoons still allow emotional honesty. A character can say, "I'm scared." And nobody calls them weak. A character can cry. Fail. Feel jealous. Feel lost. And the story doesn't punish them. But adult life often teaches the opposite. Stay composed. Stay useful. Stay moving. So people bury parts of themselves. Until one random scene, years later, opens something. And suddenly it isn't about the cartoon anymore. It's about your life. About relationships that looked perfect but felt empty. About goals that weren't yours. About becoming successful while feeling absent. What makes this painful is, you realize the warning was never hidden. You just weren't ready to hear it. Maybe cartoons never tried to teach us how to win. Maybe they were trying to teach us what winning cannot do. It cannot give identity. It cannot erase loneliness. It cannot replace self-respect. It cannot make you love yourself. And that sounds depressing. Until you realize something else. If achievement cannot create meaning, then meaning doesn't require achievement. Maybe you're allowed to stop chasing for a moment. Maybe you're allowed to become someone instead of becoming impressive. Maybe the version of you that exists right now, unfinished, uncertain, still counts. That might be the real lesson. Not become extraordinary. Become honest. Because the characters we remembered most, were never perfect. They were human. Even when they weren't. And maybe that's why they stayed with us. Because somewhere beneath the colors, they saw us before